Good morning, class. This is grade Sapphire, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so please assign for today's prayer. Okay, lead the prayer now, Mr. Alipala. Amen. So, how are you all?
We're doing fine, ma'am.
So, are you doing your activities and projects? Okay, so I guess everything are fine, and now I am going to check your attendance. So just raise your right hand if your name is Paul. Okay, so I am glad for your attendance for today because most of you are present. Only two of your classmates are absent. So now, earlier we had our first meeting, which we have already talked about the topics that talks about the poetry, its elements, and etc. So who can review or who can discuss summary of our discussion that we had earlier this morning? Now we are going to move on to the continuation of our discussion. So, but before that, you are going to go to your respective groups. I believe that you have already your groups, which is 5 groups we have, right? Okay, so each of you will be sharing your favorite poems and explain to the group why it catches your hearts and what lessons or impact it brought to your lives. So, I will give you 10 minutes for that. And by the way, after sharing, of course, each group will have a representative to share in our class the 2 most interesting and meaningful poems that your group mates have shared. So, okay, I believe that you are already done and it's time. So, let's start with group 1 and as follows. Okay, thank you for all the groups and of course to all of you that have participated in your respective groups, and indeed what wonderful poems that you have shared within our class. So now, why did I let you group and let you ask for or share for your favorite poem? So for this afternoon, in continuation of our discussion earlier, so we will be talking about since we have already had the introduction on what talks about the poetry, its elements, the genres, and its literary elements, then this afternoon we're going to discuss some of the tips or methods on how to analyze a poem. So I have here prepared 10 tips for analyzing poetry. So first we have try to figure out the meaning of the poem. So here in this number 1, so try to ask yourselves if like what happens in the poem, what is the poet trying to say, how forcefully does he or she say it, which lines bring out the meaning of the poem. Note that the last lines of the poem are usually important as they have or as they either emphasize or change that meaning of the poem. So second tip is imagery is a common technique used by poets so to get their meaning across. So here you have to ask again yourself which images have been chosen as they all related. Is there one overall image or are several different images used? So what feeling is given by which image? Evaluate the poet's images. So third is to look for symbols. Of course, it is very important when you are analyzing a poem for us to be able to really understand what the message it is trying to convey to us. So here the poet may use images that support certain concepts like love, youth, and death. So what meaning do these symbols contribute and how effective. So for the fourth tip, we have to look at the poet's choice of words. So the poet's choice of words is usually very important. Try to determine why the poet used particular words, whether or not these words stand out. Determine how these particular words contribute to the meaning of the poem. So look for words that are repeated. What effects does this add to the poem? And the fifth one is to determine the voice and tone of the poem. So does the poet take on another persona? What is the poet's mood? So it could be angry, regretful, suicidal, ardent, and so on. So what words or images out this mood is the poet's relationship with the reader. So is the poet trying to persuade, to amuse, or is he or she reflecting on the state of the world? So that's it. So for the sixth one, you have to determine if the poem has a storyline. So ask yourself, are there conflicts? Are there conflict resolved? Are the characters shown fully or in part? What role do they play? Does suspense play a part? So that's very important. So for the seventh tip, you have to look for a rhyme scheme. So in poems, so we're expecting that there are really rhyme schemes in every stanzas. So, but also it is not very necessary because there are poems that are free verse. So here you have to, does the rhyme scheme have any significance? Does the rhyme scheme draw attention to certain words or ideas? Is the poem free verse? Okay, so that's what we call free verse if it is without a rhyming scheme. So for the eighth one, we have to determine the poem structure. So it is irregular stanza from two or more equal clusters of lines, or irregular form. If irregular, why? So you have to state. So the form of the poem, how it looks on the page. So it often contributes to this meaning. So the structure also of the poem gives a meaning on what the message of the poem is being conveyed to us. So for the ninth tip, so we have to determine the poem's type. So we have discussed earlier the different types of poems. So here we have to determine if the poem is a lyric, in the form of sonnet, a narrative. What is the significance of these type of poems? So what characteristics of these type of poem are found? And last tip, the above points are just suggestions. So all of the tips that I have presented to you are not that you really have to follow them and not just to limit those. So all the above points could be just discussed when analyzing a poem. However, don't just go through this points mechanically. Each poem is unique so you'll have to decide which points are most important for you, and then try when writing your proper to think different points. So here, since we have already the different tips in analyzing a poem, so I have here an example of poem for you to have. So as you can see, so I have here prepared an example of poem entitled Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. So who can read? Okay, Mr. Justin Nalipala.
Nature's first green is gold. Her hardest you to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sunk to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay.
Okay, thank you for reading. So that poem is very meaningful, yet you can observe that it is written shortly, right? But it is full of message. So now we're going to analyze this poem. So in this poem, Frost explains that nothing, especially that which is perfect and beautiful, can last forever. So he gives several examples of this. So here, as you can see in the lyrics, in the stanza. So the first genre of spring is her harvest you to hold. So he then sank to grief, and so down goes today. These are all different ways of saying the same thing. Nothing good can last. So that's the meaning of it. And now, because the cycle of life and death depicted through the four seasons, it provides imagery that many people can identify with. So the author uses nature as his main symbol. Okay, it is the nature that the main symbol being used in this poem. For his theme in this poem, nature represents the idea that all the good and beautiful things in life will eventually fade away. So there's nothing constant in this world, only changes. One of the most significant themes to take away from this poetry is that you will cherish particular times much more once you realize how ephemeral and valuable they are. So on the surface, continuing this discussion, the poem appears to have a depressing tone. So spring flowers will fade away, children will grow up and lose their innocence, and everyone will die at some point. Although this poetry appears to be dismal, but there is still a silver lining. So Frost uses examples of things that are cyclical, like spring flowers may die, but they will bloom again next year. Children may grow up and die, but their children will live on. Okay, so that's all. Then let's end our discussion. But as I have said earlier, those tips are not, you're not limited to use those tips, so there are still more. So I hope that you have understand the poem very well, and hope that you have also learned a lesson from it. And so at this time, you will be watching a YouTube video on tutorial with regards to the additional methods and tips on how to easily analyze a particular poem. And also, please take note on important information and details that will be mentioned in the video. So, okay, that's end our video presentation. So for now, you are going to go back to your respective groups, and I will be giving you 15 minutes to analyze with your group mates the poem that I have prepared for our activity entitled The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. So you are going to provide the following informations needed from the poem. So if you can find them present in the poem, of course. You are going to provide the summary of the poem, meaning, imagery, symbols, voice or tone, and rhyme scheme, structure, and time. Okay, you may now go to your groups. Again, you will only be given 15 minutes. Okay, time's up, and I believe that all of you are already done. Okay, so you may now pass your papers in front. Okay. So I will be the one to check your answers, and the scores will be announced our next meeting. I guess it will be tomorrow. So the group that got the correct and complete information will have plus 20 points. So for now, since we are already done with our discussions and with our activity, so can anyone here in the class can recap our discussion? Okay, thank you very much. So that just validated me as your teacher that it seems you really understand our lesson. Okay, thank you very much. So for now, you have to get a 1/2 crosswise. Seems that you really understood the lesson, and you are going to write a poem applying its literary elements. So since that we have already discussed all about poetry earlier this morning and then this afternoon on how to analyze the poem, so now you're going to make your own poem. I will be giving you 20 minutes for that. And of course, in making your poem, so I have here prepared our rubrics for you to have a guide. Okay, time's up. You can now pass your papers in front. So I will be checking your outputs and will be announcing your scores tomorrow. So that means that I will be giving your scores for the activity and for your individual activity that is by group and your individual outputs. So for now, before we'll go home, I will give you an assignment. You are going to interview and listen to your parents or guardians with regards to the hardest and biggest sacrifice they have went through in their lives. And you have to ask them if they are going to make a poem about it, what would be its title and why. So just write it in 1/2 crosswise and pass it tomorrow in our next meeting. Okay, that would be all, class. Thank you very much for your participation, and I really hope you have learned something. And goodbye and thank you.